Well, it's Inauguration Day. Joe Biden is officially the next president of the United States. I suppose this is the point in which most people would either, reflect on what Trump has done, good or bad, depending on their perspective over the past 4 years, and talk about how different things are going to be now that we have Joe Biden in office. And I think that one of the big lessons of the Trump administration is that who you vote for doesn't really matter. The same people end up making the same decisions, and it's the same people behind the throne. Sure, you could substitute in a couple of different ones, but generally the same group of people who are calling all the shots. And no, I don't mean a certain religious minority. I mean the U.S. establishment, political class, the people who have pretty much held a monopoly on force and power in this country since World War II. And although Trump was not of that class, he was certainly reined in by them to a great extent. He was surrounded by them in the White House, and so through both persuasion and more firm measures such as impeachment and the Russia collusion hoax media campaign, they were able to make it so that what the policies that came out of the Trump administration didn't deviate as far as they otherwise would have from the party line, the uniparty. And so with Trump out and Biden in, what that means is that there's going to be sort of an unencumbered uniparty in power. It'll be much easier for them to get their way through with Biden, since Biden is a company man, and for all intents and purposes, he's not really even going to be president to the extent that the president himself has any real power. He's definitely his best years are behind him. They've got Kamala waiting in the wings, and they might do sort of a Bush-Cheney type of thing where, Kamala is more the one that people directly deal with, and, Biden is more the public face. Now, for what it's worth, I think that his speech was decently written. There was some woke language thrown in there, but the fact that he prayed and did a couple of other things, and he said "under God," phrases like that are no longer associated with the left. Those to me seemed like actual olive branches to middle America. And I think that Joe Biden, because he is so old and remembers a time when the Democratic Party wasn't so culturally revolutionary, let's say, that he has a bit of nostalgia for just ordinary discourse and ordinary rhetoric that you would hear from any conventional U.S. president. And so gestures like that, I do actually think, serve to help unify people, at least it would under ordinary times. Right now, I think that it's mostly going to fall on deaf ears. I think that particularly when you look at items on his agenda, namely the immigration, incoming immigration debacle, the last thing that is going to do is unify the country. That's an extremely divisive issue, and apparently he's going to try and address that in his first 100 days. So, to me, there was nothing genuine about the speech. But leaving that aside, it was a decently written speech, if your goal actually was to try and, get people around your side. Although, certain references to reining in white supremacist terrorism, I think that, a large swath of this country who are not white supremacists understand that, he's talking about them when he says that. So he might not realize that that's what he means, because within a minute or two, actually no, maybe 5 minutes later, it was a very short speech, like 20 minutes, he then also said, well, to the people who didn't vote for me, I hope you, give me another look and just hear me out. And it's like, well, he can't mean the same people that he was just calling white supremacist terrorists. So to him, he must not mean the whole of, Trump's base are white supremacist terrorists. So the speech clearly did not take as hard of a line on opposition groups as a lot of the Democratic establishment has been, essentially saying that anyone who's not, a donor to the Lincoln Project is an enemy. Were Joe Biden a different man? Were he a more independent figure who actually, could stand up on his own and who wasn't a puppet? I think that I would find some of his words to be encouraging because they did, to a certain extent, sound somewhat conciliatory. He was speaking generally about, the state of the country and how saying, hey, it's not great that everybody's, mad at each other. This isn't a nice thing. And again, you would think, well, that's, that's very bland and vapid. And it is. But, you don't even get that much out of a lot of politicians these days. Most politicians seem to be openly trying to inflame tensions further. And so hearing a politician rhetorically try and ratchet things down even a little bit is somewhat noteworthy. But then, of course, when you take into account agenda items that this incoming administration has coming up to bat, then you start to realize that when they say unity, they mean submission. They want you, the opposition, to submit to the new majority. All in all, though, I would say not much has changed. Not nearly as much changed as a result of Trump, as many people think, and not, not as much will change as a result of Biden. There is still a general regime stability within Washington. I think that support for the regime is what is unstable, not necessarily how the regime operates. And so with that said, I think that the instability of the regime in terms of legitimacy will continue and intensify. I don't think that Biden will be successful in ratcheting things down in that respect. I mean, if he wanted to be a president to calm people down, what he'd do is he'd get into office and do absolutely nothing. He would just enforce the laws as they currently exist. He wouldn't add anything new. He wouldn't try and legalize a bunch of illegals. If you think about it, after Obamacare, Obama didn't do a whole lot as president because, he had a heavily obstructionist, highly effective Republican Congress that was blocking anything he wanted to do. Said, nope, we don't like Obama. We're not going to pass anything he wants. And, at least in my opinion, 2010 to 2016 was fairly relaxing. The federal government did not accomplish a whole lot. And I think that if Biden wanted to tone things down, that's what he should do. He should, tell Congress, hey, let's not, do a bunch of, let's put these divisive issues to the side. Let's say, let these be state political issues. We don't need to handle these at the federal level. Let's just try and focus on what we agree on and stuff like that. I mean, you'd be trying to take concrete steps towards de-escalating our national politics, towards de-emphasizing national politics, but nobody's doing that. And so just as the regime in Washington is weaker today than it was 4 years ago, it will be weaker in 4 years from now than it is today. Because it is impossible to stem the decline of the United States without first understanding the nature of the decline of the United States. So with that said, if you gain anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.